leaders. Okay, let's go. Marketing, freight broker. All right, so as we start for today, if you're watching, put what you sell in the chat. We're going to try to make this as specific as possible to what you are selling. Let me turn my my notifications off here on. Okay, there we go. All right, perfect. I'm back. Okay, it works now. All right, so turning the notifications off and let's get started. So in closing, when you are closing, you don't want a bunch of objections, right? Like that kind of sucks. Having a bunch of objections in a sales conversation sucks. Plus, sometimes at the end of a sales conversation, it could feel awkward. It could feel inauthentic. Sometimes we're like, man, we asked for the sale. Like, how do we not sound pressury? How do we not sound weird? How do we not sound awkward? So before we start with anything, we are going to be doing a free masterclass on February 8th, free 2 hours. If you want access to that, you just need to DM me the word masterclass. So DM me the word masterclass. We'll get you that link over. Make sure to support you. Make sure to help you as much as humanly possible. So when is the sale made, right? Most people think that the sale is made at the end of the sale. However, this is very much not true. And when you are going through a sales conversation, there's different things that need to happen inside of that sales conversation in order to get somebody to want to buy. Why would somebody want to buy from you? Well, one of two things. You have either shown them that you can solve a problem for them and or an emotional need for them, okay? Most people are not walking around, though, and saying, like, I have a problem, I need to solve it. Most people are not doing that. It's kind of like the pimple popper show. You know, when you go and watch the show and you're like, why do these people have these pimples that have been on them for like 3, 4, or 5 years and they haven't done anything about it? It's because it has never really became a problem, except for when you had they were dating somebody new and then they were like, hey, what is that pimple? And then now they want to do something about it. And yes, I am speaking at the event in Arizona at the Entrepreneur Conference on the 17th. So if you can be there, then let's roll. So people don't really know about the problems that they have unless you ask questions in order for them to realize that they have problems, right? So we want to make sure that we are showing them the problem and we are showing them the pain that they're going through, and they're realizing that it would be more risky to do nothing at all than it would be to buy your product or service. That's what they need to feel. The whole entire point of what you are trying to do is trying to get this person to change their perspective. And most people are creatures of habit. Most people don't like changing. So you are only going to be able to get them to buy, unless they're a lay down sale, which I don't want to talk about because lay downs you don't really need skills for. You're only going to get them to buy if you really show them that they need to make a change and they feel so uncomfortable with what they're doing right now that they're like, I have to do something, right? So how do I get them to not have objections? And there's different things that you can do. And I don't have time to go over the entire methodology of this, but I want to be able to show you that there's different aspects of these sales conversations that elicit different emotional drivers depending on what you sell that can really help you, right? So one thing that we have to understand is regardless of your industry, we need to know how to get these people to listen to you, right? Take you seriously. Why is that not going away? Okay, that's fine. Okay. So in the very beginning, regardless if you're talking to somebody and it's a cold call, an outbound call, or an inbound call, I need to make sure that I am doing a couple things. I'm getting this person to see that I'm a knowledgeable expert. I'm getting them to drop their guard. I'm getting them to be curious. And there's different things that you can do depending on what your situation is. If somebody's meeting you in person, that's going to be a very different conversation than them meeting you on Zoom, right? Or if you're calling them, or if you're calling them cold, and they have no idea who the hell you are, right? There's different things that we have to do. The reason why I'm talking about the beginning of the call, even though this whole thing is about not having objections, is because this is where it starts. The very first 7 to 12 seconds that come out of your mouth and the beginning of a sales conversation literally makes or breaks you. So if you don't know how to, how do I do that? If you don't know how to handle this very well, and you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do, you're going to be at a loss. You're going to be at a place where it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to get somebody to buy from you because they're not going to take you seriously. Ooh, this is super cool. Wow, perfect. They're not going to take you seriously. So I need to be unlike anybody else, right? I need to make sure that I am getting them to stay curious, I'm getting them to drop their guard, and I'm asking the right questions. I'm getting them to think results-based thinking as fast as possible. Now, we don't have time to go into every single scenario. So just for this example, let's say that we are talking to somebody and we are in maybe like a B2B conversation. Somebody said that they sell cybersecurity software to resellers on here. Perfect. So let's say I'm having a conversation with somebody. The first thing that I want to do is address what we're talking about, right? It looks like we, booked this time together today to talk about possibly putting some type of security in place for you and your company so that you can make sure that you're protecting your company's information and not getting hacked, right? Regardless of whatever it is, they're going to come to you for a different reason, but we want to make sure that they're thinking results-based thinking as fast as possible and you're understanding their intent. Like, what even prompted you to look at putting something in place just so I can understand? Well, recently we just got hacked and we lost all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I understand. There's a reason, there's an intent here. I'm like, well, can you walk me through what you have in place right now, just so I have a better understanding? And they're going to start telling me the things that they have in place right now. Now, again, I'm being very generic with these examples. All right, I need to have a little bit more information when I'm talking to this person, but I just want you to see what's happening. Because if I don't get them to think results-based thinking from the very first conversation that I'm having with somebody, it's going to be very difficult for them to be open to wanting to buy from me at the end. Because if I come in really aggressively, or if I talk too fast, or if I'm too enthusiastic, or if I seem like I really don't know what I'm talking about, right? And again, this example is if we have an inbound call. So if you're talking to somebody and they say that they don't need anything right now, that would be a different call. That would be a cold call or an outbound call. Outbound meaning like they filled out something on an ad and we're calling them, or you're cold calling, which means they have no idea who the hell you are and you're giving them a call, right? So that's a very different conversation. We're talking right now about just an inbound lead. They're booked on your calendar. They know that they're coming to this call. There's a reason, obviously, for them to be there, and that's what we're talking to them about. Whenever I'm in the scenario and I start asking them questions about their situation, typically I'm asking them really basic, generic, logical questions first, because it's like a stepping stone to them talking about pain that they're going through. My whole point of my sales conversation is to try to find the problems that they didn't know they really had and find pain from those problems, find out how it's affecting them, right? But if I go ahead and I just start a conversation with somebody, I don't really know them, and I jump in and start talking about pain, it's going to make them subconsciously put up their walls. So I have to lead them in to speaking about pain. I have to crawl before I walk, before I run. So I just need to understand their situation. And when I'm asking about their situation, it's really cool because I'm getting little nuggets and things that I can use during the call. It's really important that I'm using somebody's verbiage throughout the call. If somebody says I really don't have time with my kids, and you bring up later, you mentioned earlier that you don't have time with your children, even though I'm saying the same thing, I'm really not. I need to use the same verbiage that these people are using. Yes? If they say the same thing, it doesn't matter what industry. They're I feel like our employees are really not happy and they keep leaving. And I say later, you mentioned earlier that your team is really not happy and they keep leaving. I'm saying two different things, even though it sounds like the same thing in my brain. I need to be able to use the same verbiage that somebody has. And I'm going to show you today on how to get to the root of someone's pain. How to get to the root of someone's pain. Because sometimes we think that we're getting to the pain and we're really not. Right? We're really not. Right? How about coming in to help people that are going through closures? How do I come in without mentioning pain? We are absolutely going to mention pain, but we need to have some information first, right? We need to know how long they've been in that house. We need to know, right, how many, like, are they on their own or do they have a family they take care of? We need to know, like, who's all involved in this process. We need to know what they in regards to how many months they are behind. Like, we need to know some basic facts before we start talking about, you're about to lose your house, how's that affecting you, right? We just need to know a little bit of information before we go underneath the surface, right? And so that's what the second aspect of this is. It's like, when we first start having some rapport with this person by showing that we're a knowledgeable expert, by getting underneath the surface. And again, this is for an inbound lead example. And we start asking them about what's going on in their current situation, then we can start uncovering the pain. But I'm going to show you how to do this in a very, very simple way, because I think that so many times, like, we make this really complicated, and it's really not. It's not complicated if you know how to listen. Because when people say things, certain parts of what they say carry emotional weight, okay? And if you learn how to listen and find the emotional weight, then you are going to be able to really find the pain points. It's like you're listening to what somebody means, but not just what they say. And I had to show you how to do this, because if I tell you, that's one thing. If I show you, your brains would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So let's pick an industry here, right? So we had mentioned something like, let's pick like a company that needs like better leads, and I'm selling some type of, somebody says this is really good. You fumble because you don't listen. You're too focused on closing them. Exactly. If you're focused on making the sale, you're not paying attention to what's going on in the first place. So with this example, let's say that I am selling marketing services to this individual, okay? And again, we have a free masterclass that's coming up on the 8th. So you just DM me the word masterclass. We'll send that over to you. Link is in my bio as well. I think that I can pin that up here. I'm not sure how to do that. Okay. So let's say for this example, we are selling marketing services. Right, to a company. The whole thing is that they want better leads. That's what I'm selling. Better leads for their salespeople. Like, that's what I'm trying to help them with. Getting better leads for their salespeople. So what we have to do is we have to kind of figure out how to get to the point where it is appropriate to talk about the problem of them not having leads. So the first thing is, like, I want to build a rapport. So for this example, let's say that I had an SDR that called somebody, set up this appointment. They clicked on an ad. We did an outbound call. We mentioned, like, hey, yeah, Bob, yeah, it looks like you clicked on one of our ads yesterday about possibly getting better leads for your sales team. Did you find out what you were looking for? Or what ended up happening with that? Yes, I'm still looking, right? We went over a couple things. We qualified them, and we set them up with one of our people, right? One of our account managers, one of our closers, and they are taking this call. So this is the second call this person is showing up for, and we want to make sure that we are establishing that we're a knowledgeable expert as fast as possible. So they come onto the call, and we say something along the lines like, hey, Bob, can you see me? Can you hear me okay? We're on a Zoom. So it looks like you talked to Sally on my team about possibly putting higher quality leads in place for your sales team so that they can close more. I guess, like, what even prompted your attention to want a higher quality lead in the first place? And they're like, well, like, we've been working with several different companies. We really don't like every single thing that they're doing. Our leads are trash. We hate them. It's awful. And they're giving me all this stuff, right? Like, don't take the bait, okay? Somebody starts telling you all the horrible things that are going on. Don't take the bait. Just listen and hold space, okay? Yeah, Bob, that definitely sounds like it could be trouble for you guys. I can completely understand why this is so important. Really, these calls are pretty basic. It's a little bit more for me to have a better understanding of what you're doing right now as far as how you actually get leads and, like, the results that you're getting for that, for your team, compared to what you're wanting as far as the higher quality lead that you're looking for, how many your sales team are getting, and I guess their close rate from that. Just so I can understand, what this gap would even look like to see if we can help. And towards the end of this call, if you feel like it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps at that point. Would that be helpful? He's like, yeah, that'd be great. I'm like, okay, well, is there anything specific that you're wanting to get out of this call just so I have a better understanding of how to support you? He's like, man, like, we want to find a way to do this. We want to find a way to work with somebody that we can trust, and we need this immediate because we're losing salespeople. So he's telling us so much information, right? He told us that the other people suck, essentially. He said that there's a trust issue. So we're going to have to be able to pre-handle the trust part in the call, because now there's going to be objection around trust if he says he had trust with somebody else. And then he said that these people were really awful, but everyone has two realities. How do I spell that? If somebody says something is absolutely awful or absolutely great, there's another side of the coin, okay? So he's like, this is completely horrible. So I'm like, okay. He's saying it's horrible. It's completely awful, but there's probably another side of that coin. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to leave it there for later for my brain. He also says that he has salespeople leaving. I'm like, okay. And I put this to the side and I leave it for my brain because I can't get to the end of the call without addressing these concerns, because otherwise this guy is going to give me objections, right? So I'm just taking it through the process. Now I can't go really into all these things yet because I don't have a lot of facts as to what's going on in his company. So I'm not going to emotionally go into all this stuff because I need to logically understand what's going on first. I just need some facts. So, Bob, can you kind of walk me through like how you actually get leads right now, just so I have some more context so I can understand a little bit better? He's like, yeah, we have a marketing agency that we work with and we pay them X amount of dollars a month and they give us, X amount of leads. Oh, well, how many leads are you getting a day right now? We're getting about 100 new leads a day. I'm like, okay. And I forgot to ask, like, how many people did you have on your sales team? We have 3 sales guys. Okay. Now, what other information would I need to know? Right? What information would I need to know before I start trying to find out how emotionally this is impacting this guy? I'm like, I appreciate you. Thanks, Jax. Appreciate you, man. So I want to know, like, what else do I need to know factually? I'm like, okay, well, what did he mean by bad leads? Like, when he said that there was, somebody said, why did the salespeople leave? Like, I want to know that. He says that they're bad leads. I'm like, okay, well, what the hell is going on? Like, out of these 100 people that are coming in, the 3 sales guys, like, how many of those are actually closing? Like, how many of those are actually becoming clients? I'm like, okay, so my brain is just circling right now. Like, I'm just like curious kid, right? And when I'm asking questions, I'm not like pounding questions. I don't want it to feel like an interrogation. I'm just curious as to what's going on. Okay, Bob, like, walk me back a little bit. So you have 100 leads coming in a day. You have 3 salespeople. How long have you been working with this company? 3 months. Okay, you're working with them 3 months. And were the leads always bad? Yeah, but to be honest, I mean, they're like really awful. Okay, perfect. Now, I don't want to take the bait and go into the emotional side yet because there's still a couple more things that I want to know, right? So I'm going to just hold off on that for a second. Okay, so when you say these leads are bad, like, just so I have a better understanding, how many of these leads coming in do you guys actually close a day? Well, typically our process is we outbound these people and we get them on an appointment. So out of the 100 leads that we're calling, maybe half of them answer. And out of those half of the people that answer, maybe we get 10 on the books. And out of those 10 on the books, because most of those people are unqualified, out of the 10 people on the books, like, we close like maybe 5 of them. So out of the 100 leads that are coming in, we have 5 people that are actually becoming clients like a day. I'm like, okay, Well, that's not, like, okay, that's interesting. Well, how much is the price point of your product? And they give me some price point. Like, let's say that this is like a lower ticket thing. And they're like, okay, this is $1,000. So he's like 5,000 a day. They have 5 days a week. So they're making $5,000 a week, which means that they're making 20 grand a month. Okay, I can kind of see how that could be troublesome for them. If they have 3 sales reps, they're only making 20 grand a month. Like, I'm like, okay, like I kind of get it. But I can't tell him that I think it's awful. I have to get him to tell me how awful it is, because as he's telling me how awful it is, he's also telling himself how awful it is. And I need him to convince himself about how horrible this is so that he has to buy from me instead and make a change. Again, if I'm selling marketing services, right? So how do I uncover the pain? So now I have all the facts. I can take some of that information and I can bring it up here and peel an onion. So as I'm doing this, I just want you to pay attention to any emotional words hypothetical Bob says. Any emotional words he says, because that emotional words, what we can do is we can pull out what's underneath the surface. Now, typically, regardless if it's B2B, B2C, door-to-door, B2G, this doesn't just affect this person's company. This affects this person individually, personally. Because all humans are wired by emotion, okay? Everyone is. I don't care if it's a top, Fortune 100 CEO, whatever, like, regardless of who it is, everyone is going to be wired emotionally. In fact, if you had the emotional part of your brain damaged, you wouldn't even be able to decide what you wanted to wear that day. You can't make a decision without it being emotional. So let's find the pain. Let's find the real reason as to why they need to do something now versus waiting until next quarter, next month, whatever. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up what he said. So he said earlier, like, the first thing was how awful it was, right? He said it was awful. It was horrible, so bad. But remember that everybody has dual realities, right? They have 2 things that are going on in their head. So I'm going to say the opposite of what I want to do. So if I hype something up, the prospect typically lowers it down. Like they what's the best way to explain this? If I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing, they're like, oh, it's okay. If I'm like, oh, that's so awful, well, it's not that bad. They typically do the opposite of what I'm saying, because their brain wants to just be like, oh, it's not that. They want to even it out in their brain. So if they tell me something is horrible, I want to go with it's all bad. So what's the dual reality of it being all horrible? Okay, Bob, earlier you had mentioned to me that everything that with this company that you're working with was like completely awful, like just completely horrible. It can't be all bad over there. Like, there has to be something that you like. Is there anything that you like with this company? They're like, well, yeah, the guy's, pretty responsive. He's responsive to me, good communication, just like the leads suck. Like, okay, now what am I doing? I'm trying to get him out of being in complete, like, emotional blindness so that he can think. Okay, so yeah, he had good communication. So what do I know that this guy is going to need in order to move forward with me? Good communication. So I need to go back to my little bank of things that I need to use during this call. And then my presentation stage, I'm going to say things that he wants. So I'm going to say good communication, because I'm going to make sure I mention this later. Now, am I going to say you want like a person that can talk to pretty well? No, I don't want to say that. I want to use the same verbiage that he said. Okay, so explain it being awful, right? Like, what exactly is going on? So I have a little bit of, like, just a better picture. Well, Kayla, like, these leads suck. Like, my sales team is taking these people. They're talking to them. They literally have no money. They're not willing to do anything. We talked to somebody the other day and they were like not even our ideal client. Like, and my salespeople are getting extremely frustrated. I just don't even know what to do. Now, out of all of that sentence, what were the emotional words that this guy's used? He said a couple things. He said it sucked. He said his sales guys were frustrated. Whoa. And then he also said that he didn't know what to do. Now, I need to take one of these things and I need to go underneath the surface. So I don't think it sucked. I think it's either frustrated or he didn't know what to do, doesn't know what to do, right? Out of those two words, he's like, I don't know what to do. And my sales team is frustrated. Which of those has higher emotional weight? I'm just going to guess. I'm going to go in the middle. I'm like, okay, frustrated. That's the lane I'm going to pick. So how do I get him to open up about the sales team being frustrated? I can do a couple different things. I can mirror, right? I'd be like, frustrated? I can get clarity. Well, when you say frustrated, what do you mean by that exactly? I can say, well, how do you mean by frustrated? Bob, when you say your sales team is frustrated, how do you mean by that? Notice that whenever I speak about pain, I lower my tone. I'm trying to create a safe place for us to communicate and talk, right? So I say, well, how do you mean by frustrated? And he's like, well, I literally had one of my guys last week that didn't come into the office at all because the entire day before he had booked appointments and every single one of them was not qualified. And, you know, him not coming into the office is influencing other people. And I'm just like, what if they quit on me? Okay, yeah, that could be concerning. Okay, like what if they quit on you, right? So I'm listening and I'm like, okay, so did he really give me anything here? Right? Like, where can I take this? Like, I'm afraid, like, what if they quit on me? So like that, what if they quit on me? That was the emotional thing. So I want to be, okay, so, well, what if they quit on you, Bob? Yeah, we can't have that. You know, we can't have that, Kayla. We cannot have them quit. So I just want to figure out what's going on. I'm like, okay, so am I at the end of the rope here or can I go more? I could go more if I really wanted to. Remember, he had another emotional thing that he said prior. So if I feel like I'm at the end of the road, I can come back up to the other road. I'm like, well, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you didn't know what to do. Can you walk me through that? What do you mean you don't know what to do? Kayla, I'm literally pulling 14-hour days right now. My wife is pissed. I'm not home. I feel like I'm giving my heart and soul to this company, to these guys. I feel like they're going to leave. I'm exhausted. Now we're getting somewhere, right? I'm like, okay, frustrated. Maybe wasn't the one to go to, but he didn't know what to do. That was the one. Ding, 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 ding. So then we go in there. So he mentioned that he feels exhausted and his wife's pretty pissed off, right? Forgot the emotional word I used for the wife, but in the future we would be paying attention to the word, okay? So we can go clear, like, well, exhausted. We don't really need any more clarity on him being exhausted. He already said his team's frustrated. He already explained what he meant by exhausted. He said he's at the office 14-hour days. Like, we don't really need any clarity on the exhaustion, but we could ask, well, how long do you feel like this is sustainable, right? And before we go into how long it's been sustainable, I want to know how long he's been feeling like this. Bob, you working the 14-hour days and your wife being upset with you, and you mentioned feeling a little bit exhausted. Why would I say a little bit? Remember, because if I downplay, he upplays, right? You mentioned you felt a little bit exhausted. How long have you been feeling like that? For the past 6 months. Oh, okay, 6 months. Yeah, I can understand why this might be taking a little bit of a toll on you. How long is this going to be sustainable for you? I guess, like, even personally, like, not even talking about your team right now, like, how long are you going to be able to handle this? Like, not much longer. I don't know what to do. Well, and then you mentioned your team that they might leaving. Do you feel like that's going to happen soon, or like what's going on with that? Well, ever since Dylan didn't show up in the office last week, the other two guys have been kind of off their game. They're not really showing up powerfully. Like, they're not really going in like normally. They would normally have a great culture and they're normally excited. And right now they're not really doing much. Okay. Yeah. I can see why it's so important for you to make a change possibly. I'm just trying to get to the root of what's going on. And the last part of this is that I want to get them to figure out and internalize like what's going to happen if they don't do anything, and internalize this pain. You know, you said that your wife was getting really upset with you. Like, how do you feel like this exhaustion is impacting your relationship right now? We're supposed to have date night for the past 2 weeks, and she told me that she doesn't want to go. And how is that affecting you personally, Bob? Yeah, if I don't do something quick, I'm going to not be married anymore, and that's not going to be fun. Okay, so literally, this whole entire thing went from getting leads for his team to being an issue with his marriage. That's how you get to the root of someone's pain. You have to listen and you have to find the emotional words and go underneath the surface. And if you don't know how to do that, you're going to get tons of objections in your call. During the sales conversation, people are telling you things. How do you handle objections? You handle them before you even present your offer. You listen to what's going on. Earlier in the conversation, do you remember how we said that he worked with somebody and he doesn't really trust them, didn't trust his people? Well, we have to handle trust issues before we get to the end of the call, right? He was saying like his sales team was going to leave. He was saying that the whole place was awful. We had to address all these issues. So we just have to find the place to where to address them. So now that we understand all this pain, maybe you want to know like what they've done in the past to solve their problems. So maybe you want to ask, I know you mentioned you worked with somebody else before. Like, have you been out there looking for other marketers to come and help you actually find these leads so that you can bring in higher quality leads for your sales team, make sure that they don't leave, make sure your wife is happy with you, right? And we're just finding things, and we're finding any emotional, like red flags. Any red flags. You have to think of it kind of like, think of it like you're dating again for the first time, and you're going around and you're dating these people, and you're listening for red flags. It's kind of like what you're doing. It's like before you get to where you're like, oh, are we serious? You're listening for red flags. Maybe my red flag is like, oh, this person said that for the past 3 people that they dated, maybe they've only dated them for a couple months each. I'm like, okay, red flag, this guy has commitment issues. It's the same thing in a sales conversation. I'm listening for any potential red flags. This person says that they had an issue with the last person that they worked with. They didn't really trust them. I'm like, okay, this person has trust issues. I need to make sure I overcome these trust issues so that I don't have any issues moving forward, right? And you can learn how to do that in past awareness. So if you're listening to this right now and you want to learn how to close more like this, you want to learn these skills, because these skills are acquired. They don't just come overnight, right? I didn't wake up one day and learn how to do this. Like, this is mastery. This is learning how to do this. This is studying. This is like an intense obsession with how the brain works and how to learn. So if you're wanting to learn how to do that, just DM me the word masterclass. We are doing a free masterclass on February 8th. It's going to be epic. How to close without it feeling awkward, without you having so many objections, like the tools that you need to really learn how to do this in a really awesome, authentic, genuine way. Sales does not have to be difficult. It's just that you have to train for it. It's not something that you learned one time. It's something that you do all the time. Something that you consistently work on. You consistently try to get better, because it is up to you personally to come and be the person that you want to be so that you can have the life that you want to have, right? Not just egotistical. If you want to make a difference in this world, you're going to have to acquire certain skills in order for you to make certain types of income, in order for you to be able to do things, right, in life. It's up to you. Like, no one else is coming for, like, to rescue you. It is up to you to figure it out. Like, you have every single thing inside of you. You have to be able to figure it out. You have to be able to do the work, and you have to be able to put in the reps, because if you're really wanting to learn how to do this, you're going to have to train. It's not going to just happen, right? You don't just read a book and be like, I'm a master in sales. Like, that's just not how it works, right? You just need to learn how to practice, because you want to be able to help people, right? And you can't help people unless you can get them to overcome their own fears and limitations and things that are going on. And you can only do that by getting them to open up and realize, by you asking questions, not by you telling them what's right or what's wrong. So again, DM me the word masterclass to get that link to go to our free masterclass. It's going to be epic. And I hope that you all have an incredible day. If you haven't had a conversation with my team and you need any help with anything or any trainings, just reach out and let us know what type of training that you need to support you. And we will be able to help you guys. I love you. I hope that you'll have an incredible afternoon, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone. Bye, ladies.